Kia ora, my name is Juwdet Abdul-Rassol. I'm a fourth year civil engineering student, and my honours project was Multicultural Perspective of Resilience in the Pacific Islands. My supervisors were Megan and Danny. Pacific Islanders have a long history of innovation, determination, and resilience, and they have thrived for centuries in the Pacific Islands in spite of the numerous vulnerabilities they face. But most frameworks for resilience neglect traditional knowledge and values held by these people. Therefore, it is necessary to learn and incorporate their knowledge into improved frameworks for disaster risk reduction. The objective of this project is to develop a framework to help conceptualize and define resilience in the built environment from a multicultural perspective, Western versus Pacific, which will in turn be incorporated into the way things are designed in New Zealand. To further understand Pacific Islanders' perspective of resilience and how to incorporate it into the design process in Western engineering, 100 participants were asked to complete a survey, as well as 6 face-to-face interviews were conducted by Pacific Islanders that asked a variety of questions related to resilience in engineering. A breakdown of the survey participants can be seen in Table 1. The results presented are from 2 parties, the first being participants from Pacific descent, the other party being all other ethnicities. So why the Pacific Islands, you may ask? Figure 1 indicates and displays how the Pacific Islands can be one of the top affected places by climate change and natural disasters worldwide. Figure 2 displays Pacific Island core and values. It can be seen that resilient is mentioned twice up the top, which suggests that resiliency is embedded into the Pacific culture. Because the Pacific Islands are so vulnerable to climate change and natural disasters, resiliency has become part of their core values. Reviewing their capability and perspective of resilience can help look at alternatives for being resilient as opposed to the Western engineering perspective. The National Infrastructure Advisory Council determined that resilience can be characterized by 4 key features: robustness, resourcefulness, rapid recovery, and redundancy. Adaptability is an additional trait that is often considered as an additional characteristic. Participants were asked to rank the 5 key features of resilience in order of importance, 1 being the most important and 5 being the least, and the results can be seen in figures 3 and 4. The results indicated that the Pacific people value the ability to respond, prepare, and manage to a crisis. They value trust and relationship between each other, which results in them being resilient together and overcoming a crisis together as it unfolds. Whereas with other ethnicities, robustness was the top pick, which suggests they believe in being prepared for the worst beforehand and maintaining critical operations and functions as the top key feature for resilience. Network resources is defined as a generation resource or generation asset of cities which has been fully integrated into the systems. There are principally 4 network resources for resilience, as stated by Norris, 2008, which are economic development, social capital, information and communication, and redundancy. Participants were asked to rank the 4 importance of network resources from resilience, 1 being the most important and 4 being the least, and the results can be seen in figures 5 and 6. The results illustrated that Pacific people value equality within the communities to ensure information is distributed fairly and efficiently. This shows that Pacific people have the mindset where everyone should be informed and know what to do to be resilient. However, other ethnicities showed that individuals should be connected and make decisions to be resilient, which shows that in Western society, we're used to having individuals in charge and take responsibility with situations and rely on them heavily to be resilient. Participants were then asked to choose between the 2 houses as seen in figure 7, which would withstand a natural disaster better and which would be able to recover or fix the damages done to it. The question was asked again in the face-to-face interviews to get a more descriptive response as well as a discussion going on. Figure 7 displays a traditional Samoan house called a fale in A and a standard Western house in B. A fale was described by one of the interviewees as a simple structure supported by pillars made from coconut trunks, as well as a truss being made out of coconut trunks, and iron roofing or coconut palm leaves. The results can be seen in figures 8 to 11. One of the interviewees, that is an engineer from the face-to-face interviews, explained that a fale would have less damage after a natural disaster such as cyclone, flooding, earthquake, striking, and would withstand a natural disaster better. They explain how strong winds are passed through the structure with limited resistance to damage. The structure is so simple, flooding is limited because there are no walls or boundaries to keep water in. In an event of an earthquake, the foundation and pillars may face some damages, but not as severe as a Western home. They also explain how there are fales from the 1960s that are unaffected from all natural disasters that have occurred in Samoa. So to conclude this, it was found traditional Pacific homes are surprisingly more resilient to natural disasters compared to Western homes, despite not having engineering standards to govern the construction, but rather has evolved our generations orally to produce naturally resilient structures. However, Western homes often prioritize functions and comfort over resilient structures. This poses the question, is it possible to adapt Western homes to be more resilient like traditional Pacific home? Or is it the human need for function and comfort of a house overweigh the need for a resilient home? Cheers. Thank you very much.